Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Michael Pokey here. I really want this to be one of my best, most informative videos yet. You know when you have all that sort of ideas running around your head and you're just trying to formulate it into some sort of cognitive argument, and sometimes you just really battle. It reminds me a lot of, like, I don't know if anyone else had this thought, but you know when you're a kid and you have this idea that you're going to draw something, and in your mind it's phenomenal, and the moment you start putting it down on paper, it just looks absolutely trash. So I'm hoping it's the latter. I'm hoping the ideas come out and spill out into some sort of logical, formative argument that makes a lot of sense. So I guess the topic for today's video, because I'm just babbling at the moment, the topic for today's video is 4 reasons why I think Pokemon investing is going to rise and continue to rise. And I suppose it's all to do with this idea or notion of alternate investments. Now, I'm no stranger to the fact that alternate investments have risks. And in case you don't know, an alternative investment is anything that is outside the normal realm of things like stocks and bonds and cash, like just those normal investments. It can even be like investing in commercial property, for argument's sake, can be seen as an alternative investment. We've seen a rise of heaps of them, like crypto. Okay, that started, feels like it's been around forever, but it hasn't. It only started in 2009 with Bitcoin. People are really starting to invest in things like, modern day art. People are even investing in things like wine these days, antique watches, modern day watches, like, 10-year-old Rolexes or Patek Philippe's. This whole idea of alternate investments is really rising. And like I said, I'm no skeptic when it comes to the amount of risks, or I'm not oblivious to the amount of risks that come with it. There is, in a lot of cases, not a great deal of historical data to support alternate investments like the share market. It can be, in some cases, quite illiquid in that it is a lot harder to sell than just clicking a button and making a transfer. And I suppose a lot of these alt investment industries aren't as regulated as typical investment structures like stocks or bonds or cash being at the bank, in that it can be quite fraudulent in some scenarios. And we see it all the time in Pokemon investing. We see fake Charizards. I saw a fake first edition Charizard online the other day for probably $300, maybe under what its market price should be. And you're looking at it going, oh yeah, sweet. Didn't even have the holo pattern right. But if you're fresh into the hobby, you could get frauded by something like that. And people get away with it all the time. It's really, really hard to, I suppose, pin someone. So fraud can come into an industry like that. So I'm not naive to the fact that there can be risks with alt investments. So I guess what I want to get into now, though, is 4 reasons why I think Pokemon investing will really rise. And, just one more little bit of background before we jump into the 4 reasons. Look at an example like the Reddit forum, okay? That Pokemon investing Reddit forum, when I joined it about probably 4 years ago, I think, or was it 3.5 to 4 years ago, I think there was like 500 members at the time. And now I think they're up to 70 or 80,000 members. So in that short time period, like just parabolic growth. Even back, pre sort of, Sun and Moon era and before, this whole notion of Pokemon card investing, it wasn't really a thing. Even back, this is going back probably 15 years ago, when I was buying bulk EX series booster boxes, which I wish I'd kept sealed. I could probably retire now if I kept them all sealed. But I was buying bulk Holland Phantoms, bulk Crystal Guardians, even though they were, probably 4, 5, 6 years in some cases out of original print run, you could still pick them up for 200 Australian a booster box. Like that. Yeah, they were maybe a touch dearer, $40 to $50 dearer than what you can get them out of their cheapest at release, but you could still buy them for $200. And I was in the process of opening them, selling cards, sometimes making a profit, sometimes adding to the collection. Eventually sold the whole collection of my whole EX series. But point is, it wasn't really a thing. And there's some people that got lucky, like some real early adopters, someone like... it's a shame. It sucks I didn't join OKJ Love's stream the other day, because Cool Trainer Ryan was on there, and it would have been cool to chat to him. He did talk a little bit in there about, him being an early adopter, I guess, without even really knowing it, into the Pokemon investing space. So anyway, let's get on. That's a little bit more background that, Pokemon investing, it's only just started, and I feel it's only going to continue to rise, which is the whole premise of this video. And here's 4 reasons, right? The first one is, a lot of people see it as And I use this all the time. Like, this is one of my main reasons that I suggest Pokemon card investing. Not only is it fun, that's what I say, like, it is the fun part of your portfolio, but it's all about portfolio diversification, isn't it? You hear people talk about that all the time, and I don't tell people, go put the mortgage on Pokemon card investing. Who knows, you could get really rich if you did that, but I always tell people to be a bit risk adverse. Personally, I'm quite a risk adverse sort of person, so I tell people all the time, 5%, like if you've got a net worth with equity in your property and shares and bonds and retirement fund, whatever else, cash, if 5% of that equates to 30 grand for you, which for people in their 30s, it might well do at this stage, 30 grand of a sealed Pokemon card collection and single Pokemon card collection is a hell of fun to have, isn't it? And, if that goes up, beautiful. If it doesn't, so what? Open it all and have some fun with it, hey? Like, the whole idea, I think, behind old investments, and particularly Pokemon and the rise of it, is this whole idea of, portfolio diversification. Not only is it Pokemon, like I mentioned before, there's, I know people that invest in, alcoholic beverages, whether it's wine or maybe some rare spirits, or I know people that invest in, slightly older watches and, have a heap of fun with buying, maybe a Rolex, for 40 grand, then all of a sudden it's retailing for 60, 70 grand Australian in a few years' time. So, there's heaps of alternate investments that people are getting into, and it really just gives you, that's the first point, portfolio diversification. Now, second one I want to lead into is this whole idea that it could possibly give you or yield you higher returns. If you diversify across the share market, it typically across time, and I don't know the exact figures, but typically across time, what's it going to return you? Over the whole period of the share market, 5 to 10% a year, which is good. Like, it's obviously the aim is to beat inflation, isn't it? Otherwise, you're parking your money in a dead spot. But the whole idea behind portfolio diversification and investing in an old asset is it could yield you higher returns than a traditional investment. So if you've got, 60% of your wealth in property and 30% of your wealth in stocks and bonds and, 10 or 15% in cash, and then you've got that 5% in an alt investment like Pokemon cards, and all of a sudden you say, hold on, okay, so my property has risen 6% year on year. My share portfolio has risen 8% year on year. My cash is just a safety net because, it's just parked there, but I am getting interest on it, which is, 3 or 4%, but it's not really beating the rate of inflation at the moment. But hold on, my Pokemon card investment's gone up 40% this year. Okay, well, that's interesting. How's that section of my portfolio outperforming every other section of it? Like, awesome. So the second point is it can yield you higher returns. The third one I wanted to touch on is it can sort of hedge against some market volatility. So typically the share market is very related to the economic position of the world. And you could also argue Pokemon cards are as well. Like, if there's more money around, people are spending more into it. Like, of course, the COVID saga, of course. But it can sort of be shielded. Like, we've seen a lot of segments, and I know my share portfolio throughout COVID really took a bit of a dive, and it's only just starting to recover a little bit now, whereas Pokemon, that didn't slow Pokemon down. Pokemon card investing was still going north at a rate of knots, particularly for out of stock sets like the Ladder Sun and Moon sets I picked up, some of the early Sword and Shield boxes like the base set booster boxes that I picked up, and now, of course, those mid Sword and Shield sets and Ladder Sword and Shield sets are really picking up steam, and they're not being affected by any market volatility. They're not being affected by this whole, inflation's through the roof, interest rates are crazy, cost of living's just ridiculous. Housing prices that took a massive jump through COVID have sort of leveled off or even dipped a little bit. Car prices have done the same. Like, I guess it can be hedged a little bit against market volatility. That's the third point I wanted to bring up. And the fourth one, which is a really, really important one, and this is where I think the whole idea behind, and I don't know if nostalgia is the right word. I think it's bigger than that. There's some level of uniqueness to Pokemon card investing, particularly if we're talking vintage, in that, what it really is it's you having the opportunity to own a piece of history. If there is, I don't know what the number's up to now, 118 or so, 120, correct me if I'm wrong, first edition PSA 10 base set Charizards, That's pretty special, isn't it? Like, you can own a piece of history. That's a piece of your childhood history. That's the card that you always wanted as a kid. That's the one that people were flashing around the schoolyard saying, look what I got, boys. And you were just thinking, damn it, I wish I could get that. And then you pull the Venusaur and you're still okay with it, but you really wanted the Charizard. But there's hardly any, I don't know, there might be 130. I'm not sure exactly how many first edition base set Charizards are. It's beside the point. The point is you can own a piece of history. That's why, artwork is so, unique artwork is so valuable. It's similar to that, isn't it? Like, it's almost like our modern day artwork. We saw the rise, and I don't know NFTs very well. I don't have any, but, we saw that rise and I think fall maybe of NFTs, if anyone's a NFT investor, how, some of those NFTs that were really shooting up in price because they made limited numbers of them. It's the same sort of thing. It's like that modern day artwork for us, that we can own a piece of history. And as those pieces of history, like, look at Evolving Skies as the best example. And this goes above and beyond supply and demand, because it adds emotion to the equation. And when you add emotion to the equation, it throws everything else out the window, because you can't measure emotion, can you? Like, take Evolving Skies for an example. There's a finite amount printed, and that could be, who knows, 2 million boxes, 20 million boxes of Evolving Skies could have got printed, but we don't know the exact number. But let's just pluck one out of the air for a moment and say, let's say 5 million boxes of Evolving Skies got printed. That's probably super low, but let's just say there was. By now, after heaps has been opened, how many are left? There's going to be heaps stored. People still have heaps stored. Don't get me wrong. There is lots of Evolving Skies booster boxes left in the world. But let's say that 5 million has, and again, I'm just plucking numbers out of the air as an example. I'm not saying these are facts and figures. Let's say that 5 million has dropped down to 750,000. Okay, so 15% of total market volume is left in existence. And then all of a sudden, let's say in another 3 or 4 years, there's only 300,000 left. And then after another 5 years, there's 80,000 left. And, as time goes by, more and more of it gets opened and less of it becomes or remains sealed. And that's where we get that real uniqueness, that you can own a piece of history, like a base set first edition booster box sealed, like a Skyridge, the smallest printed Pokemon card set in history, booster box kept sealed. That's why those boxes, yes, it's supply and demand, but there's that uniqueness of owning a piece of history. That's the important one. Well, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit now, but hopefully, to summarize the whole video, all those ideas that I had inside my head, hopefully it's come out as a nice piece of artwork, not like I was when I was a kid and it came out as an absolute mess. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you've learned something off it. I'm Michael, this is Poke Oz. I'll catch everyone next time.